Welcome back, friends, to another beautiful day on the homestead. You know what time it is. We're going to enter in. We're going to open up another one of Granddad's time capsules. So if you're just joining us, my granddad, one of the things he gifted to me before he passed away was his lifetime collection of knickknacks and trinkets. He was a mechanic, and he saved everything, being a man that lived through the Depression. And we have been systematically going through the drawers and finding all sorts of curious things. So I picked out another one here. We'll go through it today and see what we find. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite beverage. We'll hang out together and see if I can identify everything that's in this drawer. All right, here we go. You wouldn't believe how many requests I get for these. Every time when we do our live streams, hey, when are you going to do another time capsule? Unfortunately, they're not going to last forever, so we're going to have to really savor them. All right, let's see if we can figure out what all this stuff is. So I know what this is. You probably know what this is here. Maybe the younger guys don't. These are little catches for cabinet drawers to keep them from, what are they, keeping them from closing? Over closing, or just little latches. You screw them on there and then they turn and you can open and close your cabinet. So that we're going to have our save pile. Maybe we'll put our save pile here, and then we'll keep our, or right here, we'll keep our throwaway pile here. Here's a little brush. Granddad used these. I remember when we would set up, working in a shop, we would set up ring and pinions, and he would paint a white stuff on there, a lithium, I don't remember what it was, to see how the gears mesh. Because when you set up a rear differential axle, you've got the ring gear and the pinion gear that kind of fits inside of it, and those have to be shimmed and fit just perfectly. And he'd use these little metal brushes to paint that, and they would roll the gears and see where the teeth made contact. I'm going to keep this. Actually, I was going to order one of these on Amazon to keep in my grease bucket, like our Bel Ray waterproof grease. It's nice to have a little brush in there. You can dip the grease, and then you can paint stuff, and then you don't get all of your hands. It's just a cleaner way to do it. I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier. I saw a guy doing that on a YouTube video not long ago. Corrugated joint fasteners. These 55 cents from True Value, right there in the original packaging. I think I know what these are for. These would be for woodworking. Like, let's say you were going to fasten a picture frame together, like two miters together. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you would pound those into the backside, and that would make a joint. A kind of just a quick way of doing. I have never used those before. We might have to do a project where we use those guys. Oh goodness, what in the world are these things? Some sort of a keeper pin or a cotter pin here. Brake parts, something to do with brakes. But I don't remember what. I should know this. I feel like I'm like on the cusp of knowing it. Made in USA, brake parts. Let us know if you know what those are. I don't know where those fit. Here's the genuine Fomoco. I remember Granddad's boxes, his parts boxes. It would say Fomoco. He was a Ford mechanic, which stood for Ford Motor Company. This is a what in the world is this? We got a part number. Who wants to look this up? F2TZ2C150-A pin TJ. Good grief, who could possibly know what this thing is right here? What in the world? Oh, I'll bet this is a brake part. I'm kind of getting it's got a rubber, it's like an engine mount deal where looks like a rubber inside there, an isolator of some sort. That was something to hold. I wonder, I'm kind of wondering if this has something to do with brakes. Who knows? Maybe someone can look that up and find out what that's worth. But it's an OEM part, brand new. I don't think we'll ever have any use for that, if I had to guess. What do we have here? We've got a little collection of, looks like maybe pan head screws. Yeah, little pan heads with no self-tappers on these. These are nice for screwing into the bottom of your rubber boots. Like if you wear Ugg boots and stuff, they make good traction for ice. I screw these pan heads in. It's better if you can get one with a slot in it for like a regular screwdriver, because they grip better. It's just an assortment of small screws and things. I'll actually keep that, and I'll just pour that out into my drawer screw. I have a drawer I keep all those little screws and things. Here's another one of those deals, a mysterious part. Oh goodness, who knows what that is? Another keeper of some sort. I don't know what that would be. Plug adapter. It's got a grounding deal, so yeah, you never know. We could probably use that. Here's some emery paper. This used to, well, probably still does. Comes in rolls. Machinists will use these quite often for if you need to file something off or grind something a little bit that you need to do by hand. It's kind of when a file is too coarse and sandpaper is too fine, these emery wheels are really good. In metal shop, we had a good metal shop in high school. We would use this for smoothing metal out on the lathe. I'll use that. I actually have a project that I could use that on. We've got a bearing, sealed bearing, not much use there. Look at that. Just when remember I was telling you that I ran out of these things and I was needing them? Schrader valves for tire, and you can bet that these are good USA made ones. Brand new in the package. Definitely save that. I had a leaking one that wasn't working the other day. Granddad's made some jumpers for different things, for probably testing. We got another brush. We'll save those brushes. Here, who can say what this is? I know what this is. These are just little vacuum plugs. On the engines, especially like in the 70s and stuff when they were going through emissions and the smog pumps. Is that focusing? I hope so. Emissions and the smog pumps and such, you would always have vacuum leaks, and then your car would run bad. This is in the carburetor days. And you would take these things and maybe unhook plugs, unhook vacuum nipples and things, and you could test. I think I remember Granddad I think we used to use propane. So if there was a vacuum leak on an engine and you couldn't find it, he would, I believe it was propane, and the engine would rev. Whatever you would get that near, you had a little propane deal, and you could find those vacuum leaks. But these are kind of handy to have, little rubber plugs and things. Goodness gracious, who knows what that thing is? Right there, we've got some air hose chucks, a whole bunch of those. Those, of course, are useful. And Granddad's his are the automotive style. There's another one of those. I think we remember that from one of the last time capsules here. Was it something to do with the let's see, Motorcraft? It looks like something that it's a one-way valve or a check valve, maybe that would fit on the valve cover. I wonder if it has something to do with the crankcase ventilation, if I had to guess. I know what this is. That's a Ford headlight switch, man. They would look like that forever. On the headlight switches on the Fords, they would go out all the time, and to get them loose, you'd have to reach up underneath. There's a little push button on the top that would hook into that little notch in the back there and release the knob, and then you could access the deal and spin it out. But that's an old one right there. That goes way back. That's probably, what's that, 50s? 50s, 60s? Not really useful today. What is this? This is just a plastic wedge. Actually, I'll use that. I'll use that for something. We've got more of these little clip deals. We got some pipe fittings, more air chucks, vacuum lines, wire jumpers. This is a sending unit right here for some sort. Probably temperature, if I had to guess. So how the old temperature sensors would work. So there'd be like maybe a hole in your intake manifold into like where the coolant ran, and you'd thread this in there, and then it would run a signal across there. Those wires would hook on there, and it'd tell you, read your temperature. But that's kind of old-fashioned there. It doesn't have much use today. We got a whole bunch of just rubber vacuum hoses. No idea what that is. How about this one? Is this an old spark plug gapper? If so, how would that work? Do you see that? Hold on, I'm going to change the focus point here. I'm worried about the focus. I think that might be better. We can bring you up close here so it'll focus on these things here. What in the world is that? It's got 9, 15, 12, 14, 10, 11 on there. It's something to do with measuring some sort of a gap or something. I don't know about that. We'll save that. Someone's going to know what that is. We got more fittings. Good grief. Urix Best? What could that possibly be? Can you see that? It's got wings on it. Like, is that for turning? Like a key for something? Man, who knows? Who knows what that is? Not something I think I'd need. Here's more hose fittings. Here's a drill chuck. You know, pretty much all my drills have went chuckless now, and you know, these kind of have to be specifically fit the chuck that you have. So I don't think that's going to be too much value. We have another oddity. Is this even automotive, or is this something for like to lower door? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It looked like a slider for a door, like what do you call it? Like a sliding type of door for maybe like a closet or something. And that's on a cam, you could adjust it, and that's the wheel it rolls on. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw that, but I think this is is that a soft plug? Soft plugs, if you don't know, in your engine are there'll be holes all over the engine where the water, where it go into the block where the water jackets are, and they'll push in. This may not be a soft plug. If we have one that I know is, I'll show you. But they push in these brass or metal plugs in there. Maybe some people might call them freeze plugs. And I think the idea was if the water were to freeze in the block and it were to expand because you didn't have the right antifreeze on there, it was to push those things out. I don't know if that was a byproduct of the casting or what it was, and that kind of has that look. We got a whole bunch of these guys right here, which it feels like a fibrous, almost like a fire hose material. It's very stiff, but it's got these pads on it. It's almost like it was something that would to wear on or to shim something with. Very brittle. I have no idea what that is. We got a looks like a petcock. This is kind of, I'll keep this. This is kind of a cool thing. So you could have, let's say you had a 3/4 inch rubber hose, like a coolant line coming in, and you wanted to have a drain on there, so you could drain it for the winter time. You could unscrew this like you would on the bottom of a radiator. Your radiator will have a plug on this where you can drain it if you need to change it. And that's kind of a handy little thing to have. We got more rubber hoses. We got like a leg for a table. That doesn't do us much. I will keep that. It's nice to have little adjustable deals. More vacuum stuff. What in the world is that? I thought for a minute it was a light switch for a Ford, but it's got a, I wonder if that was maybe a choke handle, but it's got kind of a strange connection point on there. Don't see where we would use that. More brass fittings. Wow. So this is obviously made to plug into a wall plug. It must be, I'll bet it's a night light. What do you want to bet? Do you think it works? Let's go find out. I got a plug here. Oh, where did it, oh goodness. No, is it? Well, the cover came off there. That is bizarre. I have never seen anything like this before. I don't think it's a nightlight. What's the chance of me getting shocked here with this? It's not a nightlight. It's goodness, I'm never going to get it out of there. Now it's all charged. Beats me. I don't know what that thing's for. Air hose deals. We got some more brushes. We got some more fittings, jumper wires, more clips, whatever those are for. This is kind of similar to that last one. Where was that at? That key deal. Are these related in some way? They're like the same, but very different. Who knows? Here's a spring. Granddad's got a lot of springs. I have a whole drawer full of little choke springs. This looks like something you find for a throttle return for a small engine. Never had too many of those. There's a little T for vacuum lines. An old antiquated sending unit of some sort. Oh, we've got a gear. I'll bet that, who knows what this is? I'll bet this is a speedometer. I'll bet this is a speedometer gear, where they would maybe even run a cable. You know, now of course it's all digital, but the old ones, they'd run a cable down, and that would turn, or maybe an electric sending unit. And that you could change these, like if you had different gear ratios and tires and such. So I don't know for sure, but I'll bet that's what that is. Here's a crush washer. Who knows for what this is for? This is a crush washer for a Dana axle. When you are, I believe, when you are tightening down the yoke on the pinion gear, these crush into place and fit. But that's, I don't know if it's new or if it's old. It looks like a new one. Some sort of maybe a race for a bearing. Here's another one of those deals that I thought was a choke. Our millennials probably don't even know what this is for, do they? what that point was for. So back in the day, and I remember this, when you'd buy oil, it came in a can with a metal top in it, and it was paper. I believe it was paper. Kind of like, imagine a big soup can. You remember those things? And you would, you'd take these guys and you would poke a hole in the top of them and you pour your oil in, and then you could open your cap for your soda or your beer right there. That's an old one, isn't it? I remember hearing a story from a guy, I don't remember who it was, someone who raced the Baja 1000 years ago, and they weren't able to finish because they'd thrown a bunch of those oil cans in the back, and when they needed oil because something happened, they went back there and they'd all busted open because they were, the way they were made. But that's a blast from the past right there. Another Dana crush washer right there. I used to set up a lot of Dana axles. I've still got all the tools, the specialty pulling tools and all that for doing that. These are all Ford parts, stamped Ford. Some random Ford part. We've got some alligator clips. I have found these all over Granddad's stuff. He'd take these little alligator clips for testing electrical. Back before the day of all of the computers, the OBD2 plugs that you could plug into, you just kind of had to test stuff with a test light. He used to diagnose engines with a 12-volt test light and a stethoscope sticking around there listening to stuff. I'll keep that. Those are handy. Some sort of an adapter plug, maybe for an oil pan. It almost kind of reminded me of an oil pan repair deal, but I don't think so. Has that feel, has that oil pan feel there, doesn't it? More electrical goodies, more electrical stuff. Is this a valve? Oh, I should know what this is. I should know what this is. My initial thought was it was a valve stem remover, but I don't think it is. Can you see that there? Yeah, I don't know what that is. I guess if you don't know what it is, you're probably not missing. There's a sending unit for sure. That looks like looks like a Ford sending unit with you clip the wire right on the top there. And that would, the pressure would push a little diaphragm in there, and then it sends a signal out to your old Stewart Warner gauge. Here's the other foot. It'd be nice to have 4 of these. These are nice rubber feet for leveling a table or something. Hopefully there's some more of those. We got springs. We've got more air chuck hoses and such. Let's see, more of these. Here, you know what this is? This is for splicing cable or wire rope. You put 2 or 3 of these on there, and they fit through there, and then you clamp them down, and they'll hold tight. Like if you were going to repair a clothesline or something. I actually have a whole drawer full of those guys. I do use those. More electrical stuff, more automotive, a whole bunch of automotive deals. Here, let's move this over. It's going to be easier to pour this out. Let's see what we have in here. Ball bearings. Oh, that brings back such a memory. My granddad was always making he must have really had a lot of fun when he was a boy with making slingshots. They would take a crook and a branch, and he'd make these for me all the time. He'd make them, and then I'd come over to visit. He'd have 2 or 3 made for me, and he'd take back when inner tubes were good, real rubber. He'd take the strips and a piece of leather patch, and he'd make slingshots, and he'd save all these ball bearings for every job that he did. Usually the bigger ones, because these are too small for slingshot. But these size right here. And he'd save those into a big coffee can, and it was so fun. Every time I'd come over there, and he must have spent hours busting those bearings out of the races and putting them in that can, and I would go out and I would shoot it, anything that moved, of course, when you're like 8, 9, or 10, shoot those ball bearings. And ball bearings were so much better than rocks because they flew so straight. You could actually hit stuff with them. His paint cans, he would take the paint cans and cut them open and get the marble out of there. And he'd save the marbles for me, and I'm going to save those ball bearings just for the fun of it. Right there, there's another bearing. More sending units. These are shims. I'm guessing these maybe shims for this. I don't think they put Dana axles in Fords. They would have probably been most likely 9 inches and things like that. Maybe they used a crush washer as well. I never did learn to set up 9-inch, so I don't know about that. But that's what that looks like. It's probably shims for setting up an axle. We've got an old hose clamp there, just the wire style. And random things. Here's a little petcock deal. This would have been on the bottom of a radiator right there. You would, you see the focus there? You'd open that up there and you'd drain your radiator out. Just some various things that I don't know. Lots of clips. You can't have too many clips. I'm going to keep those guys there. This probably would have slipped on a valve cover or on the engine somewhere, maybe on a smog pump for hose management to run your hoses. We got a nice, that's a big old Phillips screw there. I'll keep that. More, lots of air chucks. Air connections. I don't think I'll be buying any of those in my lifetime. Whole bunch of sending units. That's something. That's funny. He would save those. He probably took them off. They're all greasy, so he probably took them off and replaced them. I don't know why he would have saved those things. We got hoses. This is a diaphragm of some sort. Almost something like you'd see on a fuel pump on a small engine. Still kind of soft. More fittings. Washers. I always save washers. Never throw washers away. There's a little cable keeper there. Here's more of those, if you're running vacuum, spark plug wires maybe. Yeah. These are 5mm for spark plug wires, so you could keep those bunched up together like when you're coming up over the exhaust manifold so they don't burn. Keep those guys. Here's several more of these little doohickeys here. What are they? Yeah, that's it right there. That's what it is. It is for tire valves right here. So if you look right there, I can see it. I knew it was. So that's how you remove that Schrader valve. Focus. Right there. And this almost looks like a little thread reamer, maybe for cleaning the threads out. But those are for tires. I'm 99% sure. Another brush. Here's another one. So this is a deflator. Actually, this is really handy here. I don't have one of these. You got a deflator on one side. Sorry about the focus, goodness. That's how you let the air out, and then you would flip it over, and then you can remove that valve, that Schrader valve. People said I was confused in the name of the valve. I'm not. The automotive ones are Schraders. The little ones are Prestas, like you find on bikes. This is I've got 2 plastic wedges here. Don't know what for. I like wedges though. This would have been right here, just what I was talking about on your light switch. This would have been the little trim, the chrome keeper nut. And it's got the little detents in there, so you could carefully get a wrench on there and spin that out. That would have been, I'll bet, for a headlight switch. We got some bushings. Keep those. This is very similar to that rubber deal. This is some sort of an isolation deal. Maybe it's to do with a motor mount. It's got a rubber in there, to prevent vibration. Your engines are not mounted solidly to the frame like you would like with a tractor. That's why when you rev the engine, you'll see it move a little bit because it would just tear everything up. So they're actually mounted on these heavy rubber mounts as well as the transmission. So the transmission and the engine are all isolated from the frame so they don't transfer vibration into your steering wheel as much as well. More just random things, sending unit caps, 1/16, 1/8. This looks like is that a spark plug? This is cool. Look at this guy here. Looks like a spark plug gapper almost. The thickness is different on the 4 edges, 1/16, 1/8, 3/32, and 5/64. No hateful metric and granddad stuff. I'll tell you that right now. I can't wait till the metric system dies the slow death it deserves. Okay, so here we go. We've got a pipe, clamp, little keeper. We've got some springs. Now we're getting down to the wire here. We got some, looks like maybe a big thrust washer, springs. Is there anything else I can identify? Cotters. Is that what they call it? No, what do they call these? Are those cotters? Well, those roll pins. Thank you. Roll pins. Whoever was willing the answer to me. I heard it loud and clear. And that's it. Some various clamps and cotter pins. That's a cotter right there. I have a whole drawer full of those. I dig in those things all the time. Little keeper. If you have tractors and stuff, you're always using those. More spring deals. Who knows what that is? That's a keeper for a U-joint. So on your drive shaft, you would press your U-joints in. We did a ton of these. And then that would be the keeper that fits in a ring on the inside that keeps it from coming out. Ben Ford, no doubt. Man, I don't see anything else. Is there anything else that we should keep in there? Don't know what these guys are. This looks like a brake, maybe a little brake keeper spring of some sort. Don't know what those are. Piece of plastic. And what in the world is this? He's taped it together. I know what this is. I can't believe I just found this. Here, let me just double check to verify that that's it. I think it is. I think it is. So that brings back memories. So my granddad, he didn't have time for any snake oil nonsense or anything. You know, he was just keep it simple, keep it work guy. But he was a true believer in Slick 50. Slick 50, if you don't know, and I could be wrong, but I think that I remember this. I think I know what this is. Slick 50 was it still is an oil additive, and I don't know if it's legit or not. Granddad always claimed that it was, that you put in with your oil and it coats or binds to the metal and gives you extra lubrication, right? So someone had come to the shop and had given him this demonstration. It was these two pieces of copper right here. And one was coated with Slick 50. I don't know how they did that. And one on the back side, of course they're taped together here, was just copper, which is the bearing surface. Your bearings, like where your crank runs against your bearings or your connecting rods or stuff, you have copper on the bearing and you have steel on the engine crank. That way it's a consumable item so that the bearing wears out before the crank wears out, and therefore you can replace the bearing without replacing the crank. It's the way it's done. And so what they had done to simulate or give an example of how good Slick 50 was you would take this copper, which represented a bearing surface, and you could pinch it and you could squeeze them together like this, and you'll feel that they're very slippery. Almost like it feels like a Teflon feel, like very, very slippery. And then you flip them over without the Slick 50 on there, and you've got the copper surfaces, and you can see now how they stick together. This is with no oil. Right there. And I remember Granddad carried these around in his pocket, or I don't know if it was these very ones, I'll bet it was. And he used to show people. He'd show people, that's right, I remember that. The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that these are the very ones that he carried in his pocket. And he taped them together. I'll bet I'm probably the only person in the world that would have known what that is, because I remember that from childhood, him doing that, because it was so out of character for him to be sharing things like that. You know, he just not what he did. My grandma, she was the entrepreneur. She was such an entrepreneur that she had vending machine route, little vending machines, you know, that you put the nickel in and you get little toys and peanuts and M&Ms. She had those, and then I think she sold so much. She was such a good salesman for was it Mary Kay? I don't remember. It was one of those businesses that she actually had a pink Cadillac. Apparently, if you were like the top salesperson, you get a pink Cadillac to drive around. I mean, I remember this. I think I remember it. My granddad must have been just having a fit, her rolling in that house with that pink Cadillac, being a Ford guy. I'll bet that didn't go over well. I do remember something about a pink Cadillac being in the driveway. Man, I'll close with this. The first car my dad bought me a really nice car when I was 16. It was was it 71, 72 Challenger, the 340 in it, yellow. Oh, it was a cool car. I probably have a picture of it here. Maybe I'll include it if I have it. And it was having some brake problems, and I'll remember it to this day. We were getting ready to go. I used to go drag race out in Woodburn. We were getting ready to go to drag race, and I had driven off a curb and broke the brake line on the front caliper. And I rolled in there and asked him to help me, and he just gave the sneer when he. I would actually assume or imply that he would want to work on a Mopar. He did it, but there was some complaining. I told you he never complained about anything. He did complain about the metric system, and he complained about me driving that yellow Mopar. But that's what those guys are. Memory lane. All right, sorry, I'm ranting now, or I'm going on too long. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next video.